If you've ever listened to the band Frederic, you know that guitar sound. It's the kind that just grabs you. It cuts right through the mix, it makes you want to move, but somehow it never ever feels like it's overpowering the song. Well, that incredible sound is the masterwork of Ryuji Akagashira. And in this breakdown, we're going to pull back the curtain and really deconstruct his entire sonic blueprint, from the guitars in his hands to the digital brain that makes it all possible.
So here's the plan. We'll start with what makes his sound such a cool puzzle. Then we'll dig into his guitars and his philosophy behind them. After that, we'll talk about his clean canvas amp setup and his absolutely epic pedal board. We'll wrap up by looking at the digital brain that controls it all. And then we'll put together the complete blueprint for you.
All right, so let's start with the big question, the central puzzle, really. Akagashira's guitar is so often the main hook, the thing you hum later, and yet it's also the perfect glue holding the whole band together. So how does he do that? How does one guy manage to be both the lead voice and the ultimate team player at the same time?
You know, music journalists have tried to put it into words, and these descriptions, they really nail it. His sound is all about these perfect contradictions. It's danceable, yet rock. It's present, but not in the way. And I love this one, a balance of sharpness and floatiness. It's sharp enough to cut through, but it's got this airy, floaty quality that gives it so much space. It's pop, it's dance, but it is undeniably rock and roll.
So this is the puzzle we're here to solve. And the answer isn't some single magic pedal or a secret amp setting. No, it's a complete, thought-out system where every single piece has a very specific job to do. So let's start breaking it down.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the instrument itself. Now, Akagashira has a pretty sweet collection of guitars, but he mainly leans on a few key workhorses. And each one was chosen for a specific reason that tells you a lot about his practical, performance-first mindset. His main lineup is just classic. You've got the Gibson ES-335, a semi-hollow that gives him all this warmth and versatility. Then there's his Les Paul Gold Top, a total rock machine, and he loves its super thick neck, which gives it this massive, sustaining tone. And then there's his vintage 65 Fender Stratocaster, which has a really fascinating story behind it.
And this right here, this is where you really start to see his whole philosophy in action. He didn't just buy a priceless vintage guitar to look cool on a wall stand. No, the first thing he did was get it modified to serve the music. So, you know how on a standard Strat, the volume knob is right there, super close to the strings? Well, if you're an aggressive rhythm player, you're constantly hitting it by accident. It's so annoying. So what did he do? He just had the volume knob and the pickup switch swapped. Simple as that. This gives his hand way more room to dig in for those funky muted riffs without ever messing with his volume. It's pure function over form. It's brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next layer in his sound. If the guitar is the paintbrush, then the amplifier has to be the canvas. And for Akagashira, that canvas has to be absolutely perfectly clean. He runs two super high-end, boutique, two-rock amplifiers. This brand is famous for its incredible clean tones, and, not coincidentally, it's a favorite of one of his heroes, John Mayer. He even matches the amps to the guitars. The Coral is for his humbucker guitars, like the Gibsons, and the Bloomfield Drive is for his single-coil Fenders. But here's the key. This is the part that might surprise you. He doesn't get any of his distortion from these super expensive, beautiful amps. Not a bit. He runs them loud and crystal clean. The amp's job isn't to create grit or distortion. Its job is to be a perfect, powerful, clean canvas for all of his pedals. You know, this whole approach has a name. It's called using a pedal platform amp. The idea is simple. You start with the best, cleanest, most high headroom sound you can possibly get from an amplifier. This gives you a totally consistent, reliable foundation, a blank canvas that you can then paint on with your pedals. It's all about having total control over your sound. And speaking of painting, this is where Akagashira's true artistry really comes out. He uses a massive two-tiered pedal board that is an absolute masterclass in tone shaping. Seriously. It's not just a random collection of effects. It's a carefully curated palette of sonic colors. So before he adds any of the fun, crunchy stuff or the spacey ethos, the very first step is to shape the fundamental signal that's coming straight out of his guitar. This is all about controlling the dynamics and adding just the right amount of presence and punch. So for this, he uses an EP booster to add that little bit of sparkle and thickness. He uses a Wampler ego compressor to make sure all of his rhythm parts are tight and even. These pedals build a strong, articulate core tone before any distortion even gets a chance to touch it.
Okay, now for the rock and roll part. Instead of just relying on one distortion pedal for everything, he uses a technique called gain staging. All that means is he has multiple overdrive pedals set to different levels of grit, which he can use one at a time or even stack on top of each other for heavier and heavier sounds.
His method here is just so smart. It's all about having options. He actually uses two identical Bogner-Wessex pedals. One is set for just a light crunch, and the other is set for a much heavier gain. Then he's got a classic Marshall Governor for those British rock sounds, and the MXR 5150 for when he needs to go completely over the top for his solos. It's a full spectrum of dirt right at his feet.
And this is the final layer. This is the secret sauce. It's what gives his sound that signature floatiness that we talked about earlier. This is where he adds all the depth, the dimension, and the amazing texture to his sound.
And he is using the heavy hitters here. You've got the industry standard Strymon Big Sky for all his reverbs and the timeline for his delays. A Line 6 HX Stomp handles all the other modulation effects. And then there's a Boss Guitar synthesizer for those really wild out there sounds. It proves that pretty much every sound you hear comes straight from his guitar rig. And you gotta love that he has a great sense of humor about it all. Talking about his Fuzz Factory, which is a famously wild and crazy pedal, he said, "With this, anyone can be a great villain." It just shows that even with all this incredible precision and control, at the end of the day, he still loves to just make some noise.
Okay, so you've got this absolutely massive, complex pedal board with literally dozens of sounds. How on earth do you manage that in the middle of a high-energy live show without tap dancing like a maniac? Well, the answer is a powerful digital brain. The brain of his entire rig is the Free the Tone Arc 4 switcher. This thing lets him create presets. So with one single foot stomp, he can turn 5 pedals off and 3 pedals on at the exact same time, letting him go from a clean, shimmery rhythm to a soaring, distorted lead in an instant. It's the perfect marriage of pure analog tone and smart digital control. So we've looked at the guitars, the amps, the massive pedal board, and the control system. We've basically solved the puzzle. So now let's distill this entire philosophy down into a clear, actionable blueprint that you can think about. Okay, so here it is, the Akagashira method. Step 1. Start with a versatile guitar that is ready for performance, maybe even modified for how you play. Step 2. Build your entire sound on a foundation of a pristine, clean amplifier tone, your blank canvas. Step 3. Paint on that canvas with a diverse palette of pedals for dynamics, for gain, and for space. And finally, step 4. Use a powerful switching system as the brain to control everything, making sure every sound perfectly serves the song. At the end of the day, Ryuji Akagashira's rig is a perfect reflection of his musical identity. It's thoughtful, it's precise, and it's incredibly versatile. It just goes to show that a truly great guitar tone isn't about finding one magic pedal. It's about building an entire system where every part works together to create a signature sound. So the real question this leaves us with is, what's the blueprint for yours?